The massive crystalline warships of the Droo Empire hung in Earth's orbit like deadly jewels against the black void of space. Commander Vexler stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 6-foot-tall frame covered in the natural crystal armor that made his species nearly indestructible. His multiple eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he watched the final human defense stations explode into brilliant orange fireballs. Pathetic Vexler muttered through his translator device. I'd stunned the Droo's collective consciousness, shared by all. Members of their species buzzed with agreement. After studying humans for decades, they had expected more resistance. Instead, Earth's military had crumbled in just 3 days. Down on the planet's surface, human soldier Hyunwoo pressed his back against a crumbling concrete wall as Droo plasma bolts sizzled past his head. His military uniform was torn and bloodied, his face covered in dust and sweat. Through his radio, he could hear the panicked voices of civilian evacuation coordinators. "Sector 7 is overrun. We need more time," someone screamed. "There is no more time," Hyunwoo replied grimly. He looked across the street at the evacuation center where hundreds of families waited desperately for transport ships. Children were crying, parents holding them tight, elderly people struggling to walk. His heart ached, knowing most of them wouldn't make it. His earpiece crackled. "Hyunwoo, this is Mina. Are you there?" Relief flooded through him at hearing his sister's voice. Mina was one of Earth's top engineers, working frantically in an underground bunker to save what remained of human civilization. "I'm here, sister. How much longer do you need?" "Just 5 more minutes," Mina replied, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Strange symbols and equations filled the air around her as she uploaded terabytes of data to hidden servers scattered across the galaxy. "The final protocols are almost complete." "What protocols, Mina? What are you doing down there?" But she had already cut the connection. Mina stared at her screens with tears in her eyes. Everything humanity had worked for over the past 50 years was about to be tested. She whispered a prayer and pressed the final sequence of buttons. Above, in his ship, Vexler received reports from across the planet. "All major cities have fallen, Commander. Human resistance is minimal. Their technology is even more primitive than we estimated." The Droo collective consciousness shared his amusement. Humans fought as individuals, each one making their own decisions, creating chaos and confusion. How could such a disorganized species ever hope to match the Droo's unified intelligence? "Begin the harvest," Vexler ordered. "Collect all surviving humans for processing. Their worlds will make excellent colonies once we remove the infestation." Droo soldiers, their crystal bodies reflecting the flames of burning cities, began rounding up human survivors. Their energy weapons could stun rather than kill, and they wanted live specimens for study. Humans were herded into containment fields. Like cattle, their faces filled with despair and defeat. In the underground bunker, Mina watched security feeds showing her people being captured. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she spoke into her communicator. "All stations, this is Control. Execute phase protocol on my mark." Across the planet, hidden transmitters began broadcasting a signal that had been built into every piece of human technology over the past 5 decades. It was subtle, undetectable to alien sensors. But every human brain had been genetically modified to receive it. Hyunwoo felt a strange tingling sensation in his mind. Around him, other humans suddenly stopped what they were doing, their eyes beginning to glow with a soft blue light. Even the civilians in the evacuation center stood perfectly still, their faces becoming calm and peaceful. "What is happening?" Vexler demanded as his sensors detected unusual energy readings from the planet below. The answer came in the form of the impossible. Every human on Earth, soldiers, civilians, prisoners, everyone began to shimmer like mirages in the desert. Their bodies became translucent, then transparent, then simply wasn't there anymore. In the space of 30 seconds, 50 billion humans vanished without a trace. Vexler's multiple eyes widened in shock. His collective consciousness reeled as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The same thing was happening on every world where humans had been captured. Prison ships reported empty cells. Slave labor camps found vacant dormitories. Single human remained in Droo custody anywhere. Impossible, Vexter whispered. Run full sensor sweeps. Check for cloaking devices, teleportation signatures, anything. But the scanners found nothing. No energy traces, no quantum disturbances, no evidence of any known technology. The humans had simply ceased to exist in the abandoned bunker, Minaz. Equipment continued running automated sequences. Her final message played on repeat. The phase protocol is complete. Humanity endures. The Droo will learn that superiority is not about strength, but about preparation. The crystalline commander stared at the empty planet below, his perfect victory suddenly feeling like the beginning of something far more terrifying. Where had humanity gone? And why did he have the unsettling feeling that this was exactly what they had wanted? The emergency sirens had been blaring for 3 straight days aboard the Droo flagship Dominion. Chief Scientist Kethron hadn't slept since the Great Vanishing began. Her 4 crystalline eyes bloodshot from staring at countless data streams. Her laboratory, usually pristine and organized, was now cluttered with holographic displays showing the impossible. Play the recording again, she ordered her assistant, Nexvile, who looked just as exhausted as she felt. The hologram flickered to life, showing the interior of Prison Block 7 on the captured human vessel Soul's Pride. The timestamp read, 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 7 seconds, exactly 3 minutes before every human in the galaxy had vanished. In the center of the cell sat Jinho, 34-year-old Korean technician who'd been captured during the fall of Earth's orbital defense grid. What made this recording different from thousands of others was Jinho's expression. While other human prisoners had looked defeated, scared, or angry, Jinho appeared remarkably calm. More than calm, he looked almost ... amused. Enhanced Sector 7, Kethron commanded. The image zoomed in on Jinho's face. His dark eyes held a glint of something that Kethron couldn't quite identify. Knowledge? Anticipation? The human was actually smiling, not the broken smile of someone who had given up, but the confident smile of someone who knew a secret. What are you looking at? Kethron muttered, trying to follow Jinho's gaze. Jinho's eyes were fixed on something just off camera. The recording showed him glancing at his wrist, where a simple digital timepiece displayed 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. 8 seconds later. His smile widened almost imperceptibly. Computer cross-referenced this timestamp. With the moment of disappearance in this sector, cross-reference complete. Subject Jinho vanished at 14 hours 35 minutes and 22 seconds, exactly 3 minutes and 7 seconds after this recording. He was watching the time, Kethron realized. He knew exactly when it would happen. The implication sent a chill through her crystalline spine. This wasn't a random event or some desperate last-minute escape plan. This was coordinated, timed, planned down to the second. Nexvile, bring up the recordings from Colony World 15, the mining facility. The display switched to show a different scene, human workers in a deuterium processing plant. Their faces covered in grime and sweat. The Druid forced them to continue operating the facility after conquest. Believing human labor was cheaper than automated systems, there, Kethron pointed to a group of workers near the main reactor. Look at their behavior in the final minutes. The humans were performing their duties normally, but several kept glancing at their wrist chronometers. One worker, a woman, named Youngmi, according to the prisoner identification overlay, actually cleaned her hands and straightened her work clothes as if preparing for something important. Computer. Analyze the body language patterns of all humans in this facility during the final 10 minutes before disappearance. Analysis complete. 67% of subjects exhibited behaviors consistent with anticipation of a scheduled event. Heart rates increased by an average of 12%, and stress hormones showed patterns associated with excitement rather than fear. Excitement, Kethron repeated. They were excited about vanishing. The laboratory door hissed open, and Commander Vexter strode in, his towering crystalline form casting sharp shadows across the cluttered workspace. His usually perfect posture showed signs of fatigue. The past 3 days had been hell for the entire Droo command structure. Report, Kethron, The colony governors are demanding answers. We've lost contact with 17 worlds, and the infrastructure failures are spreading. Commander, I don't think these were failures, Catherine said, manipulating the holographic display to show a galaxy-wide map. Red dots marked locations where critical systems had malfunctioned. Look at the pattern. The red dots formed a clear progression, starting from the outer colonies and moving inward toward the core Droo worlds. Each failure was separated by exactly 73.6 hours. It's sequential, Vexter observed. But human technology isn't sophisticated enough for this level of coordination. That's what we assumed, Catherine replied grimly. But watch this. She brought up technical schematics of a power generation facility on Colony World 8. The plans looked typically human, inefficient, redundant, overly complex compared to elegant Droo engineering. We always wondered why humans built everything with so many backup systems, Catherine explained. 3 separate power routing systems, 5 different control interfaces, 7 layers of safety protocols. We thought it was because they were primitive and didn't trust their own technology. And now I think those weren't backup systems. They were hidden control networks. She highlighted sections of the schematic in red. Every redundant system has quantum encrypted pathways that we never bothered to map because we assumed they were just inefficient human engineering. The truth was becoming horrifyingly clear. The Droo had conquered human worlds and continued using human infrastructure because it worked perfectly. They had never bothered to understand how it worked, assuming their conquered subjects would continue to maintain it. Commander interrupted Communications Officer Melkith. We're receiving priority distress calls from Colony World 12. Their atmospheric processors have reversed function. Instead of creating breathable air, they're producing toxic compounds. Is that possible? According to the colonists, systems began changing their programming at exactly 9:15 local time. All human technicians had vanished 3 days ago, so there's no one who understands how to reverse the process. More reports flooded in. On Colony World 3, the artificial gravity generators had begun creating random fluctuations, making it impossible for the crystalline Droo to maintain their balance. On Colony World 19, the water purification systems had started adding industrial chemicals to the drinking supply. It's not random, Catherine said, her voice barely above a whisper. Every system failure is designed to specifically target Droo. Physiology. The atmospheric changes affect our breathing. The gravity fluctuations disrupt our crystalline structure. The water contamination interferes with our mineral absorption. You're saying the humans designed their infrastructure to kill us. I'm saying they designed it to be completely dependent on human operation. Without humans to maintain the systems, they don't just fail, they become weapons. Vexter felt something he had never experienced before: respect for an enemy. Collective consciousness of the Droo had always made them believe they were superior strategists, but humans had outmaneuvered them completely. Sir Melkoth called out, "Colony World 7 is reporting complete system failure. The planetary shields are down. Life support is failing. Evacuation transports can't dock because the artificial gravity is fluctuating wildly." How long do they have? 18 hours, maybe less. The magnitude of the disaster was becoming clear. The Droo Empire had built itself on conquered human worlds, using human technology maintained by human workers. With humanity gone, the foundation of their civilization was crumbling. "There's something else," Catherine said, bringing up another display. "I've been analyzing the quantum signatures left behind by the human disappearances. They're not random energy patterns. They're encoded with information." "What kind of information?" "I don't know yet. Encryption is unlike anything we've encountered, Commander. The energy signatures are still active. They're broadcasting something." "Broadcasting to whom?" "That's what terrifies me." I think they're broadcasting to each other. Humans didn't just vanish. They're still connected somehow, coordinating these system failures from wherever they are." The implications were staggering. 50 billion humans had vanished without a trace, but they were still actively working to destroy the Droo Empire. Every day that passed, more worlds became uninhabitable. More colonies were evacuated. More of the Droo's military strength was diverted to rescue operations. Sir Melkoth announced, "We're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim. It's from an abandoned human research station. Put it through." The holographic display showed a simple message in multiple languages, with Korean at the top, too. The Droo Empire. You conquered our worlds, enslaved our people, and declared yourselves our superiors. But you never bothered to understand us, never learned that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to plan for the unthinkable. Every system you depend on, every world you claim, every victory you celebrate was given to you by human hands. Those hands are gone, and you're beginning to understand what you've truly lost. This is not revenge. This is consequence. You have 847 hours to evacuate all human-built infrastructure before the final phase begins. Use that time wisely. The message ended with a time stamp, showing exactly when it had been sent. 14 hours, 35 minutes, and 22 seconds, 3 days ago. The exact moment the humans had vanished, they planned this, Vexler said quietly. All of it, the conquest, the infrastructure, the disappearance. We didn't defeat them, we walked into their trap. Commander Catherine said, if they're telling the truth about 847 hours, that gives us about 35 days to evacuate nearly 1 billion Droo from former human worlds. We don't have enough ships, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough time. The proud Droo Empire, conquerors of 100 worlds, masters of the galaxy's most advanced technology, was about to learn a lesson in humility from a species they had dismissed as primitive. The humans were gone, but their final victory was just beginning. The holographic display in the Droo flagship's command center painted a picture of complete disaster. What had once been a proud map of the galaxy's greatest empire was now a sea of red warning lights. Commander Vexler stood frozen as reports flooded in from across their territory, each one worse than the last. Colony World 23 has lost atmospheric integrity, reported Communications Officer Melcath, his voice strained with exhaustion. The terraforming systems have reversed their function. Instead of maintaining breathable air, they're converting the atmosphere back to its original toxic composition. How many colonists? Vexter asked, though he dreaded the answer. 43 million Droo, sir. It may be 6 hours before the air becomes completely unbreathable. Could respond? Another urgent transmission crackled through the speakers. This is Governor Vecamar of Colony World 15. Our situation is critical. The planetary temperature control systems have malfunctioned. The surface temperature has risen by 30 degrees in the past 12 hours and is continuing to climb. About the emergency cooling systems? Vexler demanded. They're the ones causing the problem, sir. The cooling systems have somehow reversed their function and are now heating the planet instead. Our engineers can't figure out how to stop it. Chief Scientist Kethron looked up from her data analysis station, her crystalline features reflecting the red glow of warning lights. Commander, I've been studying the pattern of system failures. This isn't random breakdown, it's systematic destruction. She manipulated the holographic display to show a timeline of failures across the Empire. Every human-built system is failing. In a specific sequence, first, the backup systems shut down. Then the secondary systems malfunction. Finally, the primary systems reverse their function and begin actively working against us. But how is this possible? Vexler asked. The humans are gone. There's no one left to sabotage these systems. That's what I thought too, until I started analyzing the quantum signatures embedded in the human technology. Catherine brought up a complex schematic showing the internal structure of a typical human-built power plant. Look at this, Commander. Every system the humans built for us contains what they called redundancy protocols. The schematic highlighted pathways that seem to twist and loop through the machinery in impossible ways. We always assumed these were just inefficient human engineering extra wiring, backup processors, redundant control systems. But I think these were actually hidden command networks. Hidden by whom? By the humans who built them? Commander, I don't think the humans who maintained our systems were just workers. I think they were saboteurs preparing for this exact moment. To illustrate her point, Catherine pulled up security footage from Colony World 7, dated 2 years before the human disappearance. The image showed the interior of a massive power distribution facility, with dozens of human workers performing routine maintenance. Focus on Section 7 Alpha, she said. enhancing the image. The display zoomed in on a young Korean woman in maintenance coveralls. Her name tag reading Sujin. She appeared to be performing standard system checks, her hands moving efficiently across control panels and diagnostic equipment. Watch her movements carefully, Ithran instructed. Sujin's actions seemed normal at first glance, checking readouts, adjusting settings, replacing components. But as Catherine slowed down the footage, subtle details became visible. Sujin's fingers moved in precise patterns across seemingly random access panels. She inserted tiny devices into hidden ports that weren't supposed to exist. Most telling of all, she glanced around nervously before each action, as if checking to make sure she wasn't being watched. Computer analyzed Sujin's maintenance pattern and compare it to standard human protocols. Analysis complete. Subject Sujin performed 127 actions that are not part of standard maintenance procedures. These actions involved accessing quantum-encrypted pathways and installing unidentified micro-devices. Quantum-encrypted pathways? Vexler repeated. Our sensors never detected those, because we weren't looking for them, Catherine admitted. We assumed human technology was primitive, so we never bothered to scan for advanced encryption. We completely missed an entire layer of hidden systems. The implications were staggering. For decades, human maintenance workers had been secretly preparing for this moment. Every power plant, every life support system, every piece of infrastructure that the Droo depended on had been quietly sabotaged by the very people who built it. Sir Melkuth interrupted. We're receiving an emergency transmission from Colony World 12. The artificial gravity generators have begun creating dangerous fluctuations. Several Droo have been injured by sudden changes in gravitational force. Can they shut down the generators? They've tried, sir. Shutdown commands are being ignored. The system appears to be locked in a feedback loop that's intensifying the gravitational distortions. Vexler felt a chill run through his crystalline spine. The artificial gravity generators were essential for Droo physiology. Their mineral-based bodies couldn't function properly in zero gravity. If those systems failed across the Empire, millions of Droo would die. Thrawn, pull up the maintenance records for Colony World 12's gravity systems. The scientist's fingers danced across her control interface, bringing up personnel files and work schedules. Commander, look at this. The head of gravity system maintenance for the past 5 years was a human named Dong Su. According to his file, he was responsible for optimization upgrades to improve system efficiency. Show me his work. The display filled with technical documentation that looked impossibly complex. Dong Su's optimization upgrades involved rewiring major portions of the gravity generation systems, adding what he called stability enhancers and efficiency boosters. Computer, analyze Dong Su's modifications for potential security vulnerabilities. Analysis complete. Subject Dong Su's modifications include 347 unauthorized command pathways, 89 hidden access points, and 23 quantum-encrypted override systems. Override systems, Vexler said quietly. He built ways to take control of the gravity generators. Remotely, sir. It gets worse, Catherine said, her voice trembling. I've been cross-referencing maintenance records across the Empire. Every critical system has been modified by humans over the past several decades. They didn't just maintain our infrastructure, they systematically compromised it. The scope of the deception was breathtaking, thousands of human workers appearing to be simple laborers and technicians had actually been part of a massive, coordinated sabotage operation. They had spent decades quietly installing hidden control systems, quantum locks, and remote override capabilities into every piece of technology the Droo depended on. How many worlds are affected? Vexler asked. All of them, sir. Every former human world that we've colonized has been compromised. That's 89% of our empire. Another alarm sounded as more reports flooded in. Colony World 4's water purification systems had begun adding toxic compounds to the drinking supply. Colony World 18's atmospheric processors were slowly decreasing oxygen levels. Colony World 31's planetary shields had shut down, leaving the surface exposed to deadly radiation. Sir Melkuth called out, "We're receiving a recorded message from Colony World 2. It's from one of the human maintenance workers." "Put it through." The holographic display showed Sujin, the same maintenance worker they had been studying. But this wasn't security footage. This was a message she had recorded specifically for the Droo leadership. "Hello, Commander Vexter," Sujin said, her voice calm and professional. "If you're watching this, it means the phase protocol has been activated and my people have successfully vanished. I want you to understand what's happening to your empire." She gestured to the power facility around her. "For the past 8 years, I've been responsible for maintaining the systems that keep your colonies alive. Every day, I made sure your lights stayed on, your air stayed breathable, and your gravity kept working. But every day, I also prepared for this moment." Sujin held up a small device that looked like a simple diagnostic tool. "Hey, this quantum encoder has been used to install hidden command pathways into every system I've touched. It's not just me. Thousands of human workers across your empire have been doing the same thing. Why?" Vexter demanded, though he knew she couldn't hear him. As if answering his question, Sujin continued, "You probably want to know why we would sabotage our own work. The answer is simple. We knew you would never see us as equals. We knew that. No matter how well we served you, no matter how essential our work became, you would always consider us inferior." She moved to a control panel and began pointing out specific modifications. "These quantum locks will activate 35 days after the phase protocol begins. When they do, every system we've touched will shut down permanently. Colonies will become uninhabitable, your infrastructure will collapse, and your empire will crumble." "However," Sujin said, her expression softening slightly, "this doesn't have to be permanent. The quantum locks can be deactivated, the systems can be restored, and your empire can be saved. But only if you're willing to accept that the primitive humans you conquered might have something valuable to teach you." The message ended with coordinates, a location in deep space where the Droo could find answers. Sir Kethren said quietly, "According to our calculations, you have approximately 32 days before the quantum locks activate permanently. After that, every former human world will be uninhabitable." Vexter stared at the coordinates Sujin had. Provided the humans had vanished, but they had left behind a choice. The Droo could continue to believe in their superiority and watch their empire die, or they could swallow their pride and ask for help from the species they had conquered. "Set course for those coordinates," he ordered, "and prepare a diplomatic team. It seems we have some learning to do." The mighty Droo Empire, built on the foundation of human labor and human technology, was about to discover that their greatest weakness was also their greatest opportunity for growth. The war room aboard the Droo, flagship Dominion, buzzed with desperate activity. Commander Vexter stood before a massive holographic display showing the galaxy now divided into search sectors. Red zones marked areas where Droo colonies were failing, while blue zones indicated regions where search teams were hunting for any trace of humanity. "Operation Reclaim is now fully deployed," announced Fleet Admiral Keekthar, her crystalline form reflecting the glow of tactical displays. "We have 200 ships searching every system within 1,000 light-years of former human space. If there are survivors out there, we'll find them. They have to be somewhere," Vexter muttered, studying the search patterns. 50 billion people don't just vanish without leaving some trace. Captain Velkoth's image appeared as a holographic projection from the search vessel Seeker. "Commander, we've located what appears to be an abandoned human settlement in the Kepler 442 system. The colony shows signs of recent evacuation." "How recent?" "Based on residual heat signatures and biological traces, the humans left this facility within hours of the global disappearance. We're detecting artificial atmosphere, advanced life support systems, and what appears to be a complete underground city." Vexter felt a spark of hope. "Any survivors?" "Negative, sir. But Commander, you need to see this place. The technology here is unlike anything we've encountered before." An hour later, Vexter found himself aboard a shuttle descending toward the surface of Kepler 4 for to be a harsh world with extreme temperature fluctuations and toxic atmosphere. According to Droo's surveys, the planet was completely uninhabitable. Sir called pilot Nextel, We're approaching the coordinates Captain Velkoth provided. Not seeing any structures on the surface. Because they're not on the surface. Velkoth's voice crackled through the communicator. They're inside the mountain range at coordinates 247.6 by 158.2. The entire facility is underground. The shuttle's sensors revealed the impossible, a massive hollow space carved out of solid rock, filled with buildings, gardens, and what appeared to be a complete ecosystem. The construction was so advanced that it seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural cave systems. How long would it take to build something like this? Vexter asked, as they entered the facility through a hidden entrance. Conservative estimate. 20 to 30 years, Velkoth replied. But Commander, the humans were building this while we were still on the other side of the galaxy. They started this project before we even knew they existed. The underground city was a marvel of engineering. Streets wound through natural rock formations, while buildings seemed to grow from the cave walls themselves. Gardens flourished under artificial sunlight, and the air was clean and breathable, despite the toxic atmosphere above. Population capacity? Vexter asked. Approximately 50,000 humans, sir. Complete with schools, hospitals, manufacturing facilities, and what appears to be a command center. They made their way through empty streets, past abandoned homes where meals still sat on tables and children's toys lay scattered on floors. The evacuation had been incredibly organized. No signs of panic, no valuable items left behind. Just the eerie silence of a place that had been deliberately abandoned in the command center. They found banks of computers still running automated systems. The walls were covered with star charts, tactical displays, and most disturbing of all, detailed intelligence reports about Droo military capabilities. They were watching us, Vexter realized, studying a holographic display that showed Droo ship movements from 6 months ago. They knew our fleet positions, our supply routes, our battle tactics. Sir, called Science Officer Kelmer, I've found something you need to see. It's a recording set to play automatically when non-humans enter this facility. The main display activated, showing a middle-aged Korean man in simple civilian clothes. He sat in what appeared to be the same command center, but filled with activity as human technicians worked at various stations. Greetings, Commander Vexter, the man said, looking directly at the camera. I am Taeho, Strategic Planning Director. For the phase protocol, if you're watching this, it means you've discovered one of our preparation facilities. Vexter felt his blood freeze. He knows my name. I know many things about you, Commander, Taeho continued, as if he could hear. The question, your service record, your tactical preferences, even your personal habits. We've been studying your species for 47 years. Impossible, Vexter breathed. 47 years ago, we were still expanding into the Beta Quadrant. We had no contact with humans. You had no contact with us. Taeho corrected with a slight smile, but we had contact with you. We've been monitoring your expansion, analyzing your methods, and preparing for the day you would reach human space. The recording showed Taeho standing and walking to a large star map. The phase protocol began development in 2387, when our long-range sensors detected your fleet destroying the Altarian colonies. We watched you systematically conquer 17 different species, and we studied your pattern. What pattern? Vexter demanded. We always follow the same strategy, Taeho explained. First, you study a species from a distance. Then you probe their defenses with small attacks. Finally, you launch a massive assault designed to break their will to resist. It's very effective, but also very predictable. The star map showed the progression of Droo expansion over the decades with projected paths leading directly to human space. We calculated that you would reach our territory in 2441. That gave us 54 years to prepare. Prepare for what? For our disappearance, Taeho said simply. We knew we couldn't defeat you in conventional warfare. Your technology is superior, your numbers are greater, and your collective consciousness gives you tactical advantages we couldn't match. So we decided not to fight you at all. The recording showed construction projects across human space, underground cities, hidden facilities, advanced technology development. Instead of building armies, we built escape routes. Instead of weapons, we created sanctuaries. Instead of preparing for war, We prepared for vanishing. But where did you go? Vexter asked the recording. That's the wrong question, Commander. The right question is, where did you think we went? The display changed to show technical schematics that hurt to look at equations that seemed to twist back on themselves. Designs that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The phase protocol doesn't just hide us from you, Tejo explained. It hides us from reality itself. We've learned to exist in spaces between spaces, in dimensions that overlap with yours, but remain invisible to your sensors. Sir Kelmer interrupted. These readings are impossible. The mathematics don't make sense. They don't make sense to your collective consciousness, Tejo said, as if responding to the comment. But they make perfect sense to individual human minds. You see, Commander, your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. What do you mean? Your collective consciousness makes you powerful, but it also makes you predictable. You think alike, plan alike, react alike, but humans. Every human mind is unique. Think differently, dream differently, solve problems differently. Diversity of thought is what allowed us to develop the phase protocol. The recording showed more facilities, dozens of them hidden throughout the galaxy. Each one was different, reflecting the unique approaches of different human communities. Some were built in asteroid fields, others in the depths of gas giant atmospheres, still others in the coronas of stars. Every facility you find will be empty, Tejo continued. But every facility will also teach you something about us. We're not hiding because we're afraid, Commander. We're hiding because we're planning. Planning what? It's planning to return, but not as your subjects. When we come back, it will be as your equals. Or perhaps Tejo's smile widened as your teachers. The recording ended with a series of coordinates, locations of other hidden facilities throughout the galaxy. Sir Velkoth reported we're detecting quantum signatures at all the indicated coordinates. It looks like there are hundreds of these facilities. Begin systematic searches, Vexter ordered. I want every facility found and analyzed. Over the following weeks, the search teams discovered an incredible network of human preparation sites. Each facility revealed more about the scope of the phase protocol. Advanced laboratories where humans had developed impossible technologies. Training centers where children had learned to survive in hostile environments. Communication hubs where the global evacuation had been coordinated. But the most disturbing discovery came from Captain Zelkath of the search vessel Hunter. Commander, we've been monitoring our search teams, and we're detecting unusual brain activity patterns among the crews. What kind of patterns? Reporting dreams, sir? Dreams of human voices speaking in languages they don't understand? Some crew members claim to hear whispers when they're alone. Others report seeing human faces in reflective surfaces. Hallucinations. That's what we thought, but the patterns are too consistent. Every Droo who spends time in the abandoned human facilities begins experiencing these phenomena within 72 hours. The implications were terrifying. The humans weren't just hiding. They were somehow still present, still watching, still influencing events from whatever impossible space they had retreated to. Sir, came another report we've found. Something else? The quantum signatures we've been tracking? They're not just residual energy from the disappearance. They're active, ongoing transmissions. Transmissions to where? We don't know, sir, but the signals are strengthening. Whatever the humans are doing, wherever they are, they're preparing for something big. Commander Vexter stared at the galaxy map, now dotted with hundreds of discovered human facilities. Each one told part of the story of the greatest disappearing act in galactic history. The humans had vanished, but they had left behind a message. We're still here, still watching, and we're not finished yet. The hunt for humanity had become something much more unsettling. The gradual realization that the hunters had become... The hunted Dr. Zekthara had been working for 18 hours straight. Her 4 crystalline eyes bloodshot from staring at quantum equations that seemed to twist reality itself. The young Droo scientist had always been considered strange by her people. She preferred working alone rather than sharing thoughts through the collective consciousness. And she had an unusual fascination with chaos theory and individual thought patterns. Commander Vexter, she called excitedly as she burst into his private quarters aboard the flagship. I've found them. I know where the humans are hiding. Vexter looked up from his tactical reports, his expression weary. It had been a nightmare of colony evacuations and system failures. 3 more worlds had become uninhabitable just that morning. Explain quickly, Dr. Zekthara. We're running out of time. Quantum signatures, sir. I've been tracking them for weeks, trying to understand how they work. Every time a human disappeared, they left behind a tiny quantum footprint, like an echo in space-time itself. She activated a holographic display showing a complex web of energy patterns. At first I thought these were just residual energy from whatever technology they used to vanish. But I was wrong. These aren't echoes of the past, they're active connections to another dimension. Another dimension? Think of it like this, Commander. Imagine reality as a sheet of paper. We exist on one side of the paper. The humans have learned to exist on the other side. They're still here, in the same space, but shifted just enough to be invisible to our sensors. Patterns on the display. How do we reach them?
Ow.
That's the problem, sir. The mathematics required to open a portal between dimensions are incredibly complex. Our collective consciousness should be able to solve them easily, but every time we try, the calculations collapse into chaos. Why? Because the equations were designed by individual human minds, sir. They only work when approached by a single consciousness, not a collective one. The humans deliberately created technology that we can't understand using our traditional methods. The implications were staggering. The humans had somehow developed technology that specifically countered the Droo's greatest strength there: unified intelligence. However, Dr. Zekthara continued, I've been working on this alone, disconnected from the collective consciousness. I think I can create a small portal, stable enough for one person to pass through. Do it, Vexler ordered immediately. Sir, I should warn you, once you step through that portal, you'll be completely cut off from the collective consciousness. You'll be truly alone for the first time in your life. The thought terrified him. Every Droo was born into the collective consciousness, their thoughts and emotions shared with billions of their kind. To be alone would be like losing half of himself. How long will the portal remain stable? 30 minutes, maybe less. The dimensional barrier is incredibly strong. It's taking all my power just to create a tiny opening. An hour later, Vexler stood before a shimmering oval of energy that seemed to bend light around its edges, between visible and invisible, as Dr. Zekthara worked frantically to maintain it. Remember, Commander, she said, sweat beading on her crystalline forehead. I can't communicate with you, and I can't bring you back until the portal reopens. Vexler took a deep breath and stepped through. The sensation was indescribable. People, and the next, he was utterly alone. The silence in his mind was deafening, but also strangely liberating. For the first time in his life, his thoughts were entirely his own. The parallel dimension looked almost identical to normal space. But the colors seemed more vivid, the stars brighter. And there, floating in the void where Earth should have been, was something that took his breath away. The space habitat was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, but unlike anything the Droo had ever built. Where Droo architecture was angular and geometric, this structure flowed like a living thing. Organic curves and spiraling towers created a sense of natural beauty that the crystalline Droo found both alien and captivating. Welcome, Commander Vexler, came a voice through his communicator. This is Jae-Min, architect of the Phase Protocol. We've been waiting for you. You knew I was coming? We hoped you would. Your collective consciousness. We respect that. Small shuttle emerged from the habitat and guided Vexler to a docking bay. Inside, he found himself in what could only be described as a garden paradise. Trees, flowers, and flowing water created a peaceful environment that seemed impossible in the vacuum of space. Korean families walked along stone paths. Children played in grassy areas, and elderly people sat on benches feeding colorful fish. In decorative ponds, the air was filled with the sounds of laughter, conversation, and life itself. This is impossible, Vexler whispered. How do you maintain an ecosystem in space? We don't maintain it, said a woman's voice. Vexler turned to see a middle-aged Korean woman approaching, dressed in simple but elegant clothes. I'm Yoon Young, chief physicist of the Phase Protocol. What you see here isn't maintained. It's designed to sustain itself. Where are the others? The 50 billion humans who disappeared? They're here, Commander. All of them. Yunyung gestured to viewing ports that showed other massive habitats floating in the parallel dimension. We've built 500 of these cities. Each one houses 100 million people in complete comfort and safety. Vexther's mind reeled. This technology, it's far beyond anything we imagined possible. It's beyond anything your collective consciousness could imagine, Yunyung corrected gently. But it's well within the capabilities of billions of individual minds working together by choice rather than compulsion. As they walked through the habitat, Vexther saw wonders at every turn. Laboratories where human scientists worked on projects that defied physics. Art galleries filled with sculptures that seemed to move and breathe. Schools where children learn not just mathematics and science, but also music, poetry, and philosophy. Your people seem happy, Vexther observed. We are free, Yunyung replied. Free to think, to create, to dream. Free to be individuals, while still working together toward common goals. They reached a conference room where several humans waited. At the head of the table sat a man who looked familiar from the recordings found in the hidden facilities. Commander Vexther, the man said, standing to greet him. I'm Jamin, Chief Architect of the Phase Protocol. We have much to discuss. I need to understand, Vexther said, sitting across from the human leader. How did you predict our invasion? So accurately. How did you prepare for something that happened decades in the future? Jamin smiled sadly. Because we've been watching you for much longer than you realize, Commander. We've been studying your species for over a century. Impossible. We never encountered humans until you invaded our space, Jamin finished.
Wow.
But we encountered you long before that. We've been infiltrating your society for generations. Yunyung activated a holographic display showing images that made Vexther's blood run cold. Photos of Droo cities, military installations, and government buildings, all taken from the inside. We developed advanced disguise technology 50 years ago, Yunyung explained. Humans who could appear to be any species, blend into any society. We've had agents living among you for decades, learning your customs, studying your technology, reporting back to us. The server on Station Epsilon 7, Jamin said, referencing a secure Droo military facility. The one that processes your fleet deployment orders. The maintenance technician who's been working there for 15 years is actually a human named Minho, the quantum physicist who helped design your latest weapon systems. Her name is Su Young, and she's been feeding us detailed technical specifications for the past decade. The strategic planning committee that chose Earth as your next target, one of the senior advisors is named Kun So, and he's been quietly influencing your decisions to give us maximum preparation time. Revelations kept coming, each one. More shocking than the last, humans had infiltrated every level of Droo society, from maintenance workers to high-ranking officials. They had been watching, learning, and preparing for this exact moment. How many? Vexther asked weakly. Approximately 10,000 human agents embedded throughout your empire, Jamin replied. They've been sending us intelligence for decades, helping us understand your technology, your tactics, your psychology. But why? Why go to such elaborate lengths to disappear? Why not just use this knowledge to fight us? Because fighting you would have made us like you, Yunyung said softly. Conquerors, destroyers, enslaving others to build our empire. We chose a different path. We chose to prove that there are other ways to be strong, Jamin added. Ways that don't require dominating others. Ways that celebrate diversity instead of enforcing uniformity. Vexther felt emotions he had never experienced while connected. To the collective consciousness, shame, wonder, and something that might have been hope. What happens now? He asked. Now, Commander, you have a choice to make, Jamin said. You can return to your people and continue trying to maintain an empire built on conquest and oppression. Or you can accept that perhaps the primitive species you've tried to conquer might have something valuable to teach you. Teach us what? How to think as individuals while still working together. How to create instead of just taking. How to build a civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. The portal was beginning to destabilize. Vexther could feel the pull of his own dimension calling him back. I need time to convince my people, he said. Time is something you don't have much of, Commander, Yunyang warned. Your colonies are failing faster than expected, but we're willing to help if you're willing to change. Back through the portal, reconnecting with the collective consciousness. He carried with him the memory of individual thought and the impossible vision of a civilization that had learned to disappear rather than destroy. The question was whether the Droo Empire would be wise enough to learn from their mistakes before it was too late. The emergency session of the Droo High Council had been going on for 6 hours. In the crystalline chamber aboard the flagship Dominion was filled with desperate voices. Holographic projections of governors and admirals from across the dying empire flickered with panic as they reported the collapse of their civilization. Colony World 23 is completely uninhabitable, announced Governor Thekmar, his usually composed voice cracking with strain. We've evacuated 40 million Droo, but we have nowhere to relocate them. Every transport ship is overloaded, and our remaining colonies can't support the refugee population. The situation is the same across the Empire, added Admiral Keekthar. We're facing the complete collapse of our civilization within days, not weeks. Commander Vexther stood at the center of the chamber, disconnected from the collective consciousness for the second time in his life. The silence in his mind was no longer terrifying. It was necessary. He needed to think as an individual, too. Understand what he had learned in the human dimension. There is a solution, he said quietly, his words cutting through the panicked discussions. What solution? Demanded Governor Zethker. The humans have vanished. We can't even find them, too. Negotiate. I've found them, Vexther replied, and I've spoken with their leaders. The chamber fell silent. Even the collective consciousness seemed to pause in shock. That's impossible, Governor, Dekmar said. Our search teams have found nothing but abandoned facilities. Been looking in the wrong dimension, Vexther explained. He activated the chamber's holographic display, showing Dr. Zekthar's quantum calculations. The humans haven't left our galaxy. They've moved to a parallel space that exists alongside our own reality. And you've been there? I have. Seen their cities, spoken with their leaders, witnessed their civilization. Vexter paused, knowing his next words would shock his people. They're not primitive, and they're not inferior. They're far more advanced than we are. The collective consciousness buzzed with confusion and disbelief. For centuries, the Droo had believed themselves to be the most advanced species in the galaxy. How advanced? Asked Chief Scientist Catherine. They've built 500 space habitats, each housing 100 million people. They have technology that can create pocket dimensions, manipulate reality itself, and sustain entire ecosystems in space. They've accomplished things we thought were impossible. Then, why didn't they use this technology to fight us? Because they chose not to, Vexther replied. They could have destroyed us completely, but they chose mercy instead. He activated another display, showing images from the human dimension. The Droo Council stared in wonder at the organic architecture, impossible gardens, the peaceful communities floating in parallel space. They're offering to help us, Vexther continued. They can restore our failing colonies, teach us their advanced technologies, and save our civilization from collapse. What do they want in return? Governor Zethkar asked suspiciously. Want us to change? To abandon our belief that we're superior to other species? To accept them as equals and learn to work together rather than dominate others? The chamber erupted in arguments. Some governors demanded to know why they should negotiate with inferior species. Others pointed out that their civilization was dying and they had no choice. The collective consciousness struggled to process the concept of accepting another species as equal. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Melkuth, we're receiving a transmission from the parallel dimension. The humans are requesting permission to establish a diplomatic channel. Put them through, Vexter ordered. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of a conference room in the human dimension. Several humans sat around a curved table, their faces calm but serious. At the head of the table sat a distinguished-looking man with graying hair. Greetings, leaders of the Droo Empire, the man said. I am Dong Hyan, elected representative of the Phase Protocol Council. We understand you're facing a crisis. We are, Vexther replied. Colonies are failing, our people are dying, and we need your help. We are prepared to offer that help, Donghayan said. But first, we need to be clear about the terms of our cooperation. A younger woman leaned forward. I'm Vijin, our chief diplomat. We've been monitoring the collapse of your empire, and we want you to understand something important. We could have made this much worse. She activated a display showing technical schematics. Every system failure you've experienced has been carefully controlled. We could have made your colonies explode instead of simply becoming uninhabitable. We could have turned your weapons against you. We could have collapsed your entire civilization in a single day. Why didn't you? Asked Governor Thekmar. Destruction is easy, Donghayan replied. Any species can destroy. But creation, cooperation, building something better, that requires wisdom, patience, and the willingness to see others as equals. What exactly are you offering? Vexer asked. Complete restoration of your failing colonies, the Jinn said. Advanced technology that will make your worlds more sustainable and beautiful than they ever were. Medical knowledge that will extend Droo lifespans and improve your quality of life. And most importantly, partnership with a species that has learned to thrive without conquering others. 3 things, Donghayan said, holding up his fingers. First, the immediate cessation of all military conquest. Your empire ends its expansion and releases all subject species to govern themselves. The Droo Council erupted in protests, but Donghayan continued calmly. Second, the establishment of joint colonies where Droo and humans work together as equals. No masters, no servants, just 2 species learning from each other. Third and most important, changes to your education system. Your children must learn that strength comes not from uniformity, but from diversity. That individual thoughts and ideas make a civilization stronger, not weaker. You're asking us to abandon everything that makes us Droo, Governor Zethker objected. We're asking you to become better than you are, the Gien replied gently. Your collective consciousness is powerful, but it's also limiting. Imagine what you could accomplish if you combined your unified intelligence with the creativity of individual minds. Sir Melkith interrupted. We're receiving urgent reports from Colony World 7. The atmospheric processors are accelerating. Their failure. The colony has less than 12 hours before the air becomes completely toxic. We need an answer now, Vexer said to the humans. Our people are dying. We're prepared to begin emergency restoration immediately, Donghayan said, but we need your commitment to our terms. Vexter looked around the chamber at his fellow leaders. The collective consciousness was struggling with the decision, torn between pride and desperation. What happens if we refuse? He asked. Then you continue as you are, the Jinn said sadly. Your empire continues to collapse, your people continue to suffer, and eventually your civilization ends. We'll mourn your passing, but we won't intervene. And if we accept, then we begin the greatest experiment in galactic history, 2 very different species learning to work together as equals. The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Vexter spoke. Accept your terms. On behalf of the Droo Empire, I accept. The transformation began immediately. Human technical teams, working alongside Droo engineers, began restoring the failing systems on Colony World 7, the humans. Advanced technology didn't just repair the damage, it improved everything, creating cleaner air, more stable gravity, and more efficient power systems. 6 months later, Vexter stood in the observation deck of the first joint human Droo colony, watching children of both species play together in a beautiful garden that couldn't have existed without cooperation between the 2 civilizations. It's working, said Dujin, who had become the chief liaison between the 2 species. The cultural exchange is exceeding our most optimistic projections. The children adapt fastest, Vexter observed. Young Droo, who learned from human teachers, show remarkable creativity and individual thinking, while human children who study with Droo educators develop incredible focus and analytical skills. And the adults, they learning more slowly, but learning nonetheless. The collective consciousness is evolving, incorporating individual perspectives instead of suppressing them. They watched as a group of Droo children worked on an art project under the guidance of a human teacher named Min Jun. The children's crystalline forms sparkled with excitement as they created sculptures that were uniquely their own, yet somehow harmonious with the work of their classmates. In the old days, those children would have been taught that there was only one correct way to create art, Vexther mused. Now they're learning that beauty comes from diversity, that strength comes from different perspectives working together. The galaxy is changing, the Jinn said. Other species are watching this experiment, seeing that cooperation can accomplish more than conquest. Do you think it will last? I think it will grow, the Jinn replied. This is just the beginning. Humans and Droo working together, sharing knowledge and wisdom, creating something neither species could achieve alone. As the artificial sun set over the joint colony, painting the sky in colors that existed only because human creativity and Droo precision had worked together to create them, Vexther felt something he had never experienced in the collective consciousness. Hope for a future built on cooperation rather than domination. The Droo had learned the hardest lesson of all, that true strength comes not from conquering others, but from learning to work with them as equals. And in learning that lesson, they had discovered that the greatest victories are the ones where everyone wins. The humans had vanished not to escape the Droo, but to teach them. And in the end, both species had found something far more valuable than empire. They had found partnership.